talk about one another. Telling the truth matters.
I think that Gavin is largely incompetent, and I think the mayor is largely incompetent, and probably both of them are just stone cold incompetent. What they've done is terrible.
Trump may be right again. The governor of California is tricking the people. Let's watch him in this video when he gets more excited about land speculators coming in and possibly having a boost on the economy as far as real estate and land development. What he is about the people whose homes are getting burnt down. He even does a shoulder dance. I call it the governor's shuffle.
You talk about one another. Telling the truth matters.
The governor doesn't have a strong grasp of what's happening and keeps passing the buck to the locals. But he's out in front of the cameras every day.
We're dealing with a myriad of issues. I was just talking to Josh Green, the governor down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in. In Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in.
In Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in.
Why is the governor shimmying around like that with a smile on his face? What kind of presentation is that? Why does he look so gleeful when he's talking about land speculators? It's getting so bizarre that NBC is having to call Gavin out for spewing misinformation.
I don't know what he's referring to when he talks about the Delta smelt and reservoirs. The reservoirs are completely full. The state reservoirs here in Southern California, that mis and disinformation, I don't think advantages or aids any of us.
We do know, though, from reporting here locally that one reservoir that serves the Palisades was not full. We do know, though, from reporting here locally that one reservoir
that serves the Palisades was not full.
And that's exactly what triggered my desire to get the investigation, to understand what was happening with that local
reservoir. That was not a state system reservoir, which the
president-elect was referring to as it relates to the Delta and somehow connecting the Delta smelt to this fire, which is inexcusable because it's inaccurate, also incomprehensible to anyone that understands water policy in the state.
So basically, what Governor Newsom is trying to say is that we are too slow to understand California's water politics. We wouldn't even comprehend it. And what do he mean by it wasn't state-owned, but don't taxpayers still pay on the property? But it's not state-owned? So who owns it? Who did California sell the water to? Let's find out. But before we get to that, he said, I'm on the phone with the president right now. We're trying to figure this out. And then when she asks, can I see Governor? I don't believe you. He pretends that he was trying to talk to the president, but he's walking around trying to see if he could get service. After he just said, I was just on the phone with the president and we're figuring it out. Democrats can't live with them, and you definitely could live without them.
Governor, I live here, Governor. That was my daughter's school, Governor. Please tell me what you're going to do. I'm not going to hurt him, I promise.
I'm literally talking to the president right now. To specifically answer the question of what we can do for you and your daughter.
Can I hear it? Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe it.
I'm sorry. There's literally, I've tried 5 times. That's why I'm walking around. To make the call.
You talk about one another. Telling the truth matters. You talk about one another. Telling the truth matters.
Be prepared.
While 40 million Californians suffer through unprecedented drought, one billionaire couple owns a massive share of the state's water system, seized in a series of secretive meetings 2 decades ago. That system was largely paid for by the very taxpayers whose water these billionaires hold hostage. Urban water systems are desperate for water, but in 2023, they'll receive just 5% of what they requested from the state. The Resnicks are the biggest farmers in California. As of 2007,
They owned 4 San Francisco's worth of farmland.
And nearly half of Americans buy at least one of their products. Their pistachios, their pomegranate juice, their mandarins, their flowers. It's all under one massive umbrella, the Wonderful Company, a privately owned company worth at least $5 billion. The majority owners, the Resnicks, are worth at least
$8 billion.
How were they able to take over such a large percentage of what should be a shared public resource? This is the classroom from More Perfect Union, and today we're looking at how the Resnicks got rich. Linda is a former child actress, the daughter of Jack Harris, a successful movie distributor of the 1950s, most well known for The Blob.
Starring Steve McQueen and a cast of exciting young people.
At 19, she founded her own advertising agency. Stewart was born to a middle-class New Jersey family and started his first business, a janitorial service, in grad school. He eventually acquired American Protection Services, a burglar alarm and security company. Linda approached him about marketing services for the company, and they hit it off, not knowing that one day they'd work together
to take over California's water.
The Lovebirds became business partners. They bought Teleflora, the flower delivery company, and the Franklin Mint, purveyors of inane little tchotchkes. Linda was the marketing person, and Stewart was in charge of business. As Linda told the LA Times in 1993, "I've always said that Stewart and I together make one perfect person, like little salt and pepper shakers." In the late 80s, they found their primary industry, agriculture. They got into the pistachio business. Linda said, "We've done more for the pistachio than anyone ever since it was planted in the Garden of Eden. My husband should be canonized for all the work he's done." They started branching into other products, almonds, pomegranates, citrus, wine, and acquiring more and more land to cover it, including some very important land in Kern County, which granted them water rights in the area.
As the Resnicks were building their empire, the state of California was building new water infrastructure with taxpayer money.
California's natural water supply is very inconsistent. Vastly differing amounts of rainfall means the state can go from surplus to drought and back very easily. So they build water banks to store water during surpluses to have during droughts. One important storage facility is the Kern Water Bank, started in 1988. The facility was built with hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars, which could have been a good thing. The people of California would have owned the water. But there were 2 Californians thirstier than the rest, and they wanted more water. Linda and Stewart Resnick, and they had a lot of political power. We'll get to that. In 1994, state water officials, water infrastructure contractors, and agricultural landowners with water rights arranged a secretive meeting at a resort in Monterey Bay, California. These groups, a mix of private companies and public agencies,
rewrote California's water rules without any input from voters, taxpayers, or legislators.
The new rules, called the Monterey Plus Agreement or the Monterey Amendments, were devastating for working Californians, and great for agriculture billionaires. The original code included urban preference, a long-standing rule that in times of drought, the state water board would give urban areas, where people live, access to water supplies before agricultural interests.
Monterey axed that. That means that in times of drought, the water systems for normal Californians would have to buy water from private companies, because they weren't getting it from the state.
The new agreement also loosened regulations on paper water. That's water that doesn't necessarily exist anywhere but on paper. The full quantities of water that providers could have, but don't actually need to have. Today, 5 times as much water has been promised and sold as actually exists. And importantly, the meeting changed ownership of the Kern Water Bank. What once belonged to the state was transferred to a few private water contractors, one of which was Westside Mutual, a wholly owned subsidiary of Wonderful Foods. The wonderful employee who runs Westside, Bill Phillimore, is the chairman of the public organization that manages the Kern Water Bank. Boom, one secret meeting and the Resnicks owned
nearly 60% of an important California water resource, built with hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer money.
The new ownership, combined with the rules on paper and surplus water, meant that during times of drought, the Resnicks could sell Kern water back to the state water systems. They took Californian taxpayers' water and sold it back to them, both literally as the water supply and also to grow expensive food like gourmet pistachios and pomegranate juice. They converted the people's water into products many can't afford. And that's just one water bank. The Resnicks also have control of other water boards and have been sued for directing more water towards their properties. Resnicks donate millions of dollars to politicians and research institutions, which help them secure control over water systems, and even get more water and more taxpayer funding. One important project is the proposed California Delta Tunnel, a taxpayer-funded project which would send water from Northern California to Central, where the Resnicks farms are. They've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on state and federal legislation and politicians who support the tunnel project. But their favorite politician is Senator Dianne Feinstein.
You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway.
Chair of the Energy and Water Subcommittee.
She's a close personal friend of the Resnicks, attending their holiday parties in Aspen and maintaining their financial interests.
A quick look through the bills she sponsored shows several which would direct money to Kern-adjacent water projects. The Resnicks even ask her for things directly. When a pesky study about endangering salmon and shad fisheries threatened the Delta Tunnel, Stewart wrote a letter to Feinstein demanding a new study. She immediately forwarded it to the Obama administration, who agreed to spend $750,000 on a new study. It returned the same results as the first one. Can't buy science. But the Resnicks have tried. They are among the top donors to the University of California system, with their donations focusing on agricultural and ecological studies. The Resnicks have basically bought entire departments who put out studies on how water systems should be managed, and where funding should go. That leads to even more federal and state taxpayer dollars being used to fix up what the Resnicks profit off of. This is all bad for California, even in a capitalistic sense. Agriculture uses 80% of California's water, but only represents 2% of its GDP. The Resnicks' water monopoly is just one way their quest for wealth hurts the rest of us. They allegedly lobby for increased tensions with Iran to keep embargoes on superior Iranian pistachios. Their giant crops lead to monocultures, which kill important pollinators. They siphon taxpayer dollars into the company town charter schools they own, set up to train children to work for their farms. And of course, like any company of this size, they exploit their workers.
Well, we were sitting in our house watching television and
heard what seemed to be gunshots. Of course, we were watching the news and all the fires. Again, heard what seemed to be gunshots and looked outside, saw our next door neighbor's fire coming out of their home. Took a second and went back out again. He went to grab some things and I said our house is on fire. And
so you came in and said the house was on fire, the house is on fire.
And which house is yours?
My house is the second house. The first house is the one right there and the second house is the one that is burning right next to that one.
Literally grabbed our phones, the computer, and our dogs, and ran out.
Unreal. Oh my God. My house is
Zaire Calvin and his family have called Altadena home for 3 generations.
Just wonder if anything's left. The rocking chair for the baby. I literally just built all of this.
Calvin, a high school football coach, has lived on this block his whole life. He has seen a number of wildfires flare up in the foothills, but never in his 47 years had he seen anything like the firestorm that swept off the mountain this past Tuesday.
And out of nowhere, you see the fire appear across Lake Street, and you can see it going up the mountain on our side within an hour. For it to move that quickly and that rapidly, and for it to shift past that fast was insane.
Altadena gone, bro, it's over. His son Jameer told us the winds kicked up and power went down across the neighborhood.
It was like a hurricane, just fire, no water, with like 80 miles an hour plus. It felt surreal.
Was the fire like racing down the hill at that point?
Yeah, man. That's what's scary about this. It just was shooting.
Like a blowtorch?
Like a blowtorch. It was literally just shooting off of the mountain.
California didn't have enough water and firemen to put out the fire. They had a 5-day warning about record wind gusts. The mayor was in Africa. Gavin Newsom is trying to tell you that California was prepared. And it's all because of climate change. This is too big of a disaster to cover up. Here's a Free Press reporter who just got inside the bone-dry Palisades Reservoir. Watch this.
This was supposed to be the water to put out the Palisades fire. This is the Santa Ynez Reservoir. It's the water supply basically for the Palisades. When they first started fighting the Palisades fire, they ran out of water extremely quickly. Wednesday, 3 a.m., they were basically out. And there's been a lot of talk on why this happened. So how long has this reservoir been empty for?
Since February of last year. There was no communication from the Department of Water and Power to LAFD that there was a water supply issue.
The firefighters, when they started fighting the fires, no one informed them that the reservoir was empty.
What's worse, misinformation or mismanagement? But the ladies of The View say it's racist to report on what the governor's doing.
Who I don't applaud is someone like Jesse Waters on Fox News. This is what he said. He blamed LA fires on diversity. He said that California's woke politics and DEI are the reasons for the fires because Newsom has been tearing down dams because Native Americans, but he called them Indians, wanted some of the river back so they could catch salmon. And Gavin didn't just knock down one dam for the Indians, he knocked them all down. He knocked down 4 of the dams. I'm sorry, this is stolen land, first of all, okay? California is stolen land. Second of all, that's part of what always happens. These dams, there's preservation of the dam. So that was just complete, not only misinformation, but it was racist.
DEI didn't cause the fire, but it distracted the state from preparing to fight it. The LA water chief, Janice Quiones, who makes $750,000 a year, says her #1 priority wasn't water.
You call it powered by equity, and I know that it's been really important for the DWP to put an equity lens on everything.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the #1 thing that attracted me to this role. It's important to me that everything we do
it's with an equity lens and social justice and making sure that we right the wrongs that we've done in the past from an infrastructure perspective, and that we involve the community in that process. And this utility is serious about it, is authentic about it, and so I'm just super excited to be part of that movement.
I guess y'all didn't catch that, but she said everything that the department does, they look at it through an equity lens. That means money. That means passive revenue. It's not about the people. It's not about the taxpayers. It's about the donors. And one more thing. Did Gavin Newsom really knock down the dam? Or did he knock it down because he knew he already sold the water to billionaires? And California is stolen land? Only California? Come on, Sonny. We're not going to play this game. Only California? So Indians, American Indians was only in California? Or was they in the whole United States of America? Stop lying to the people. Tell the truth for once.
You talk about one another. Telling the truth matters.
Neighborhoods wiped off the map. Homes reduced to piles of ash. Every day it gets more grim. And the death toll keeps rising. 24 are now confirmed dead, and many more still missing. Forecasters estimate the damage to be more than $250 billion. This would be costlier than Katrina. And the Palisades fires are still only just 13% contained. Wind gusts are predicted to kick up, and firefighters are bracing for explosive fire growth. This isn't over yet, and the looting isn't stopping. At least 29 fire looters have been arrested, including these 4 fiends caught in Santa Monica. One thief breaking into homes in Pacific Palisades was dressed as a fireman when he was apprehended. Nothing is sacred. Jewels, precious heirlooms. Even someone's Emmy was stolen. And remember the guy with the blowtorch last week who was lighting fire to Christmas trees and garbage cans? Turns out he was an illegal alien. His name's Juan. Bandits and arsonists are preying upon this devastated community while it's still smoldering. And residents are gripped by fear and rumors. Here's actress Whitney Cummings.
This is a real text that I just received from a friend of mine about the fires. Some of the neighbors caught a guy setting more fires on the back of our hill. They chased him away. They called 911. I think they caught the guy recently in Woodland Hills trying to put gasoline in sewers. It's happening all over.
I haven't confirmed this, but there's a sense of every man for himself in Southern California. Some more fortunate families are hiring private firefighters, and actor David Spade's announcing bounties on arsonists.
In California, and people are saying there's guys lighting fires out there, make this worse. They just caught somebody, we're pretty sure was lighting fires, walking on with a blowtorch, they let him go. So if you can find someone lighting a fire and you catch somebody and you can get the cops to bust him and throw him in jail, I'll give you $5,000. So keep your eyes peeled and do what you can out there.
The social contract's been shattered. The government isn't able to help the people it's sworn to protect. Biden wrote a blank check and left on his legacy tour. No one knows where the VP is. Kamala's home state's California. She lives in LA. They say she could be the next governor. It's like she disappeared. Police just caught 2 sketchy men casing Kamala's house in Brentwood after someone called 911. Here's the latest on what caused the fire. Nothing definitive yet, but the Washington Post says the Palisades blaze may have originally started from fireworks on New Year's Eve. Firefighters put it out, and it may have reignited days later. Other reports say downed power lines might have sparked the inferno, and arson hasn't been ruled out. The governor says he can't get a straight answer out of anybody.
I want to get the answers. And I'll be candid with you, I wasn't getting straight answers.
Yeah.
I watched the press conference. I met with some of those leaders. We had my team start talking to local leaders, saying what's going on. Our state.
And you weren't getting straight answers from
I was getting
leaders.
different answers.
when you start getting different answers, then I'm not getting the actual story.
Gavin destroyed dams and then bragged about it.
You know, the Klamath River once supported one of the largest runs of salmon on the western United States. And for decades, dams along the Klamath River blocked salmon from migrating, damaging our ecosystems and hurting native communities who rely on these fish. By removing the dams, we're helping to restore salmon, steelhead, and lamprey populations, restoring, get this, 400 miles of historic spawning habitat, bringing life back to the river, supporting commercial and recreational fishing jobs, and honoring
our commitments to tribal nations.
They didn't do a good job with managing the budget in California. And see, that's the part that people are missing in this whole conversation. People are missing that part in this conversation, and that they're not really understanding that this is a way for them, in my opinion, over in California, this is a way for the government over in California to scapegoat themselves out of being accountable for the fact that they were already operating at a budget deficit, as well as over in Los Angeles. Whenever you see a natural disaster or something catastrophic happens anywhere, it's an opportunity for the taxpayers to then bail them out from their own bad decisions that they were making prior to this natural disaster happening. This is bad for the people over in California and Los Angeles and the Palisades and all of these places. But this is great for the government in California. You're not hearing me. Y'all don't want to hear me. This is absolutely, positively devastating for all of the people that are coming home and realizing that they didn't have fire insurance or they lost all of their stuff and all of these things. But it's absolutely exciting, especially considering that California was operating at a budget deficit in the billions. They were facing a budget deficit in the billions. And Los Angeles was cutting the budget because they had mismanaged funds. And so when you see a natural disaster happen, often at times, what it does is it presents them an opportunity to make themselves look good to the general public, to divert attention away from the thing that they were doing bad, and at the same time shore up their budget with federal tax dollars. And so you and I will now be on the hook for making sure that they're taken care of in the name of helping people and fixing this economy and doing things. And we need to divert funds away from Ukraine, even though they just got another $500 million on their way out the door. We need to make sure that we fix California and go and meet the requirement. Where's FEMA? And we got to do more for them. We got to make sure that we partner with the federal government, because this is something that was out of everybody's hands.
But this psychopath actually is sitting up. He really cares about the people, and he, and this misinformation. No, you just don't want the truth to come out. And he has the nerve to be bucking Trump and saying, hey, he wants to annex California. They need to become their own country. And that's what a lot of the Democrats are claiming after the election, because Trump is just Hitler. He's the worst thing ever. When all along, they're the ones doing the very thing they claimed that he was doing. Trump tried to get them to do something. He offered, we're going to get more into it, but it's just the amount of lies. It's just sickening. And then now you see all these celebrities and they're so upset and blah, blah, blah. Right. Now you're upset, but you voted this mess in. This is what you kept up. Remember, they're all Democrats. They all hate Trump. They all hate this right-wingers and all this misinformation, disinformation, and lies. What did Cat Williams say? All lies will be exposed.
Even though
a ridiculous lie. We have doubled the size of our firefighting army, built the world's largest aerial firefighting fleet, and increased the forest management tenfold since taking office. Time to serve these folks the facts. So that was his reply.
Their own fire department's chief complained about.
Yes, we took a $17 million budget cut. And as we know, any budget cut would negatively impact our ability to carry out our mission.
And that wasn't the only time.
Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city? Did they fail you? Yes. Did they fail you?
Yes.
Stop. He's like, am I crazy or is this a green screen? And everybody who is, everybody starts like, yeah, I think it is. And people who are like green screen experts, they're like, it is a green screen. Do you notice in the corner, his hand is like blurry? This is a green screen. Huh? So he's pretending. You see how his lighting's real good? It looks like studio lighting as well. He's removed from the background. It's not just a good lens that's doing that. It's a damn green screen. I've actually seen with other disasters, other things. I'm not going to mention certain things because they censor you if you do. But if you go back and look at news reporting, Anderson Cooper specifically, there was a school and there was a mass shooting, and you could tell they were talking about they were at the funeral, and it was a green screen. You go back and look at some news coverage through the years, it's faked. Where the hell is he? Why would you need a green screen? Look how good he's lit. Look how well his hair looks. While the people of California they're losing their homes, everything, they're fleeing. He's well dressed. If he rolls up the sleeves like he's the people, he's part of the people. And this psychopath with his hair gelled back, I mean, he's American Psycho, this is literally him.
Just 2 weeks ago, the fire department of Los Angeles decided to not do their annual testing of the fire hydrants. Karen Bass, the mayor, cut $17.5 million from the fire department. Why? Here's one tweet from Sarah Foster. She writes, "We pay the highest taxes in California. Our fire hydrants were empty. Our vegetation was overgrown. Brush was not cleared. Our reservoirs were emptied by our governor because tribal leaders wanted to save fish. I mean, the water coming from Canada they sent to the Pacific Ocean to save the fish? Really?"
This is outrageous. And Maria, my father was a firefighter. He became a fire chief. I was a firefighter. You could be far from the fire, but the winds are ripping through and the preparation is not there. And then you get a notice you're supposed to leave. This is all the work that should have been done. Gavin Newsom has been in office for more than 12 years. The lieutenant governor or governor. It falls directly on him. What has he been doing running around the country? What has he been doing? President Trump has done more for California. He put an executive order in to allow more water to be pumped through the Delta, to come through the Central Valley, to come to Southern California. And you know who fought him?
Gavin Newsom.
Sort of look, well, is it on purpose? Which it's an insane thing to think. But one begins to ponder whether or not there is a purpose in mind. What could it be? I don't know.
You talk about one another. Telling the truth matters.
Daddy, why the world is so crazy?